So Jen sent me this today, and it wasn't surprising to me because I used to work in cable news, but you probably wouldn't realize. So there's a climate expert named Catherine Hayhoe. Catherine Hayhoe. I think I'm pronouncing her name right. So she had a great Twitter exchange today. Let's read it. Let me share a sad reality. AC360, that would be Anderson Cooper's show, asked if I could join them tonight or talk about the National Climate Assessment, which the Trump administration dropped on the Friday after Thanksgiving, hoping nobody would pay attention to a report that said basically the country is going to be destroyed, probably in 30 years. I just arrived at a TED to give a TED talk, and I really needed to practice my talk, I replied to the producer. Please, they said, we will send a car. Okay, I said, it's important. I will do it. I get my hair and makeup done. We drive across the city. I do the interview. Anderson is lovely. The whole thing takes 3 hours, and they don't air the interview. Instead, they give more airtime to Rick Santorum so he could continue to spread disinformation. And Rick Santorum, by the way, has financial ties to a fossil fuel company. I'll get you more information on that next time. She continued, I don't get paid for any of this, but I think he does, doesn't he? And this is not the first time this has happened. Chris Hayes' program canceled 3 times. Once when I was literally in a chair with the earpiece in my ear. When MSNBC called me again this week, I said, I would be delighted to talk to you, but in order to be a wise steward of my time, I need a guarantee that the interview will actually air, barring a major disaster, an assassination, or the end of the world. They didn't reply. Please don't get me wrong. I'm not whining or complaining. I am enormously grateful for any and all media who want to talk climate, and equally grateful for the opportunity to do so. I talk to high school newspapers, Christian podcasts, and even sports blogs. But time is the most precious resource we have, and there's not enough to go around. So when we choose how to spend our time, it just makes sense. To be sure, it will be used profitably and not squandered. So Twitterverse, tell me, what would you do with such requests in the future? So I think this is really, really important and insightful. And by the way, Jen already reached out to her so we could interview her. So I worked in cable news. I worked at Fox, and then I worked at MSNBC. And a lot of times, you book people, but then a breaking news story happens, and you have to go up to the guest and be like, "We're so sorry, we're not going to be able to put you on air because there's a school shooting, or there's a train accident, or there's some major breaking news story," and that's just the price of doing business. Like most people understand if it's a real breaking news situation. But I just very, very quickly looked at Anderson Cooper's clips from last night. It was all Trump and Russia. So benefit of the doubt. Maybe it wasn't Anderson Cooper's decision. Maybe it was his executive producer's decision. But you don't get. Usually a producer will say, "Hey, what do you want to do with this guest?" Maybe they're running a little long on a segment. Sometimes they run too long on one segment, which, they have to work around going to commercial. So they say, all right, well, skip this guest. It doesn't happen all the time. So my guess, Anderson Cooper said, all right, yeah, cut her. This Paul Manafort fake story in The Guardian, literally The Guardian reported that Julian Assange and Paul Manafort met in 2016, right when Paul Manafort joined the Trump campaign. And literally, The Guardian is the only outlet to report this. No other media outlet can confirm what The Guardian is reporting. The Guardian reported this with literally one anonymous source, a high-level anonymous source. But no other outlet, not NBC, not CNN, not MSNBC, not the New York Times, none of them could independently confirm what The Guardian's reporting, which means some dude or gal told The Guardian this happened, and The Guardian reported it. So this is why Anderson Cooper, literally while this, let's get her title here. She's a climate scientist and director of Texas Tech University's Climate Science Center. So this is a person who knows her stuff. She's director of the Climate Science Center at Texas Tech University. And she's sitting in the chair, ready to go. You beg her. You know, at a certain point, we need to stop complaining about the corporate media as if they're just awful and start calling it what it is. Anderson Cooper, Chris Cuomo, who Jennifer likes, you know, he's let's get after it. Wolf Blitzer, Rachel Maddow, Christopher Hayes, Chris Hardball Matthews, Joe and Mika, is it now Mika Scarborough? Because they just got married. Oh, did I do a segment on this? Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski got married Sunday night? Oh, they got married at the National Archives, and I think they had the Constitution as a backdrop. And by the way, Elijah Cummings, listen to this. Congressman Elijah Cummings, the Democratic congressman from Maryland, I like him in a lot of ways. He literally has called for action. He has called for action on the Flint water crisis in the past. Congressman Elijah Cummings, literally, he's got the time to officiate Joe and Mika Brzezinski's wedding. I'm not kidding right now. Congressman Elijah Cummings officiated Joe and Mika Brzezinski's wedding. But he doesn't have the time to say anything about our Flint water investigation. Sorry, got to call it out. His press secretary finally, after 7 emails I sent, finally got back to me and said, oh, we'll try to do some social media on this when it's the right time. When it's the right time. When is the right time? When all of Flint is dead? I mean, don't get me wrong. I totally wish them a happy marriage. Blessings. May you have wonderful, I don't know, if they want children, whatever. Hope you have a nice honeymoon. But at a certain point, you have to call these people what they are. They are accomplices to the destruction of the planet. All of them. All of them. If you look at the reporting I did at the Young Turks, if you look at the reporting we're doing at Status Quo, I'd say 60 to 70% of it was either directly or indirectly about climate change. Because blinking red lights, what is the biggest threat to the world? Not just democracy, to the world. Well, the end of the planet and the destruction of the planet would be pretty high up there. So as a journalist, I prioritize, whether it be water contamination, fracked gas pipelines, tree protests to stop those pipelines, Standing Rock, Flint, East Chicago, you name it. This is the destruction of our water, the destruction of our earth, the destruction of our land, the destruction of our people's rights because eminent domain is seizing people's properties. So when Anderson Cooper, you have a climate scientist in the chair waiting to go and you cancel her so you could regurgitate a report that literally is not even worth the papers, like The Guardian literally needs to go in the witness protection program. Because honestly, it doesn't appear that their story is confirmed or verified by anybody else. And they printed this bullshit that Julian Assange and Paul Manafort had 3 meetings, one in 2016. Hey, I'd be glad to put some egg in my face if it comes out that that's true. But Julian Assange and WikiLeaks has bet them $1 million that it's not. I don't care that Paul Manafort denied that he's a psychopath and a liar. But Julian Assange and WikiLeaks denying it very vehemently, I do take to heart. So I think the corporate media we need to start saying you guys are criminals. You are literally paid public relations professionals for oil and gas companies, for fossil fuel companies, and for big oil and big plutocrats. And you are covering up, not covering up the destruction of our planet for profit. Period. End of story.